This guy's crazy. All right. It's really interesting. If you pull up Masayoshi-san, you might have heard of SoftBank.
Second largest company in Japan.
Second largest company in Japan. It's a massive, massive company.
What's the biggest?
Toyota.
Okay, that tracks.
That tracks.
So SoftBank is run by this guy, Masayoshi-san. So he's this incredibly successful Japanese businessman. You might have heard of SoftBank for two different notable stories. One is they were the big backers of WeWork, which is an extraordinarily large failed company. And this guy basically just put billions of dollars after this company that was a terrible business. And the second is recently he's leading Stargate, which is the $500 billion AI infrastructure project. So there was another piece of news this week about how they're pairing with OpenAI and they're going to be launching all this AI stuff in Japan. And I was like, what exactly is going on with SoftBank? And this guy is wild. So Masayoshi-san, Japanese business guy, he actually went to Cal, my alma mater. While he was there, he spent, according to him, 5 minutes a day trying to invent new inventions. And he invented the first electronic dictionary for languages and sold it for $1.5 million. So
That's sick.
while he was doing that at Cal, I tried to drink a whole case of beer in one day.
Hear
They're both
that?
pretty influential.
For those of you listening at home, just 5 minutes a day, you can change your life.
It's literally what he said. He was like, I decided to prove my friends wrong. So essentially, he comes back to Japan and he decides he wants to get into technology. And so he starts building a company called SoftBank. They just essentially bank software services or programs that they then sell to the Japanese companies. So that's the meaning behind the name.
Okay.
So in the kind of 80s, he's growing this business. It's becoming bigger and bigger. But he starts to invest. He loves investing. And so he, for example, invests into Yahoo when Yahoo's really, really early and young. And that grows up into a whole bunch of money. Yes?
Is that why Yahoo is so big in Japan?
Partially, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he sort of, his company invested a bunch of money into Yahoo when they were early. And part of his investing strategy as part of SoftBank as this company grew was he would go to another, let's say, American company and say, I want to partner with you. I want to invest a ton of money and we will help you establish yourself in Japan. Like we'll operationally run what your business in Japan while also just being a big part of your business, right? So this guy, Masayoshi, he starts to get real into investing. He's investing in tons of different companies. So even though he started as, they're distributing software and they're doing other types of publications and whatnot, he starts to really get a knack for going to different internet companies, giving them $20 million, giving them $10 million or whatever. And soon his company is not just that software bank anymore. It's also this big portfolio of investments into tech companies. And by the sort of end of the dot-com boom around 2000, he actually briefly becomes richer than Bill Gates. He's making $10 billion a day in net worth for 3 straight days. And so all these investments into internet stocks, like he's one of the people who, when you hear about that bubble, was one of the big beneficiaries. And then, boom, the bubble pops. He loses 99% of his company's value. And he's famous for a while, this guy, Masayoshi-san, for being the person who lost the most money of any human on Earth. He lost
so
$70 billion. Unfortunately, he did lose his trophy to Elon Musk later on. But for a long time, this is a guy who made all these crazy bets, throw all this money into these big internet companies. All of it crashes and burns. He almost loses everything, goes totally bad. He loses $70 billion of value, and he manages to scrape through the bubble. And that's how he first became really
Kai, can you
infamous.
pull us up and go to Max? On the left is the stock of SoftBank during the dot-com bubble.
My God.
So
it's back, by the
briefly,
way.
yes, briefly his stock was worth $30 per share.
It looks like one of those bottom of the ocean floor diagrams where you see the Marianas Trench.
Yeah, so it drops intensely precipitously.
It's
so
like
this guy
99% drop.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah.
wild.
And so what many people would do in this situation is tone it back. They would say, "Oh my God, I made a ton of big bets." And
need
that
to
was
ease off
really
the gas.
risky. And Masayoshi-san, he is the guy in the meme who just won't quit. He's not going to quit
keeps
gambling
digging.
because he's about to make it big. And to his credit, he's really, I think, pretty smart around, because I listened to a couple interviews with him, really smart around tech and saying what's like a future-facing tech. So coming into 2000, his company's in shambles, and he starts to sort of barely recover. And what he acknowledges is that mobile is going to be the next big thing. So over the next 6 years, he starts to basically convince banks to help him buy up telecom companies. So he starts with actually Yahoo, who had some infrastructure in Japan, and buys them. And that starts their kind of network. And then they buy Japan Telecom, which allows them to expand the network further. And then in 2006, they buy Vodafone, who has an actual phone mobile infrastructure and licensing with the government. And so through these acquisitions and expanding it over and over the course of the 2000s, he basically changes what was a software distribution company into just a massive telecoms company. Think Verizon in the US. U.S. It is SoftBank is now one of the big 3 telecom companies in Japan. They are just a massive, and they run and operate all of their stuff. So turns the company around and correctly identifies that mobile is going to be a big thing. He goes to Apple and convinces Steve Jobs to let them be the exclusive carrier of the iPhone in 2008. So a lot of kind of this forward-facing stuff. So his company starts to build back up, and now they are a telecoms company. And as he's doing that, he starts betting again. All right. So he's getting all this money, and now he's just throwing it around. So he bets in companies like this little one called Alibaba with Jack Ma and gives them $20 million. So over the course of the 2000s, he's kind of like retooling his business, bringing it back up, turns it into this successful telecom company while also using that money and putting a lot of bets. And some of those bets go really, really, really well. For example, that little $20 million in Alibaba soon becomes worth, I think, about $70 billion. Yeah, earned them about $72 billion. 20 million to 72 billion. That's just what they earned. Apparently it was worth more. That's over the course of like 16 years, but that is considered to be one of the all-time best investments ever. Another pretty prescient one he does is in 2016, he buys ARM, ARM, for $32 billion.
Yeah, I know that.
And that one, so ARM, they design essentially chips for mobile devices. So in 2016, yes, ARM is successful, but they're essentially a small company in Britain. He goes in and buys the whole thing for $32 billion and goes, I think this company is going to basically dominate chip manufacturing and chip design. We want to be in on it early, buys the thing. They eventually IPO later, and they are currently still one of the most successful companies. And again, right, it's like he kind of called how important chips are going to become.
But I want to do a small correction. I think instead of 70 billion, it was more like 8 billion. But it's still a 425 times increase, one of the greatest investments of all time. I think
that was according to him.
I'm seeing SoftBank put 20 million at Alibaba when it was a startup, and then booked a gain of 8.5 billion, 425.
But when? Because it's worth.
Oh, you're right. I mean, it does. Okay, when Alibaba went public, this investment turned into $60 billion. Maybe they didn't sell it all. Have they still own some?
Yeah. SoftBank's gain, for Wall Street Journal, 72 billion.
Okay. Wow, that is a staggering increase.
Yeah.
20 million to 70 billion is staggering.
Yeah. 20. So
it was only a measly 8 billion by Atriox reporting, but 72. Now that's a good investment.
Okay, I see. They sold 8 billion.
Right. There was a point at which they sold. Yeah. So it's not
their total shares are worth 70 billion.
Yeah, and actually at some points it was worth more. So it's not that they cashed in 72 billion in one go. It's more that over time it has become worth that much, and that's bankrolled a lot of their company.
There's a similar story to Yahoo. Yahoo, I mean, probably I'll tie it in.
Yeah.
Yahoo at one point owned a good chunk of Alibaba. Not a massive chunk, but they put in, I don't know, 30 million. And when Yahoo basically lost the war to Google and was like declining, the value that they owned of Alibaba was worth more than the entire rest of the company combined. Like, Yahoo was basically a holding company for Alibaba stock.
Which is funny because then SoftBank is in part holding it. So this Alibaba investment he makes becomes one of the most successful ever. Buying ARM, it turned out to be incredibly brilliant and is still a big part. SoftBank still owns most of ARM, which is now, again, one of, in the AI craze, like ARM is wildly influential. So this dude, even though he became the biggest loser of all time in the early 2000s, he turns around a giant telecom company and then does all these investments, some of which become the most successful ever. And so even after this failure, over the course of the, let's say, 16 years, from 2000 to 2016, turns around his whole company and makes these major investments and starts to be considered one of the investing goats. Many people are like, holy shit, this guy can identify a future-facing technology and company. He identified Alibaba early. This is one of the people who knows what he's doing when it comes to investing.
It's like Masayoshi, Roaring Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two of them investing Mount Rushmore.
And so he splits the company up into two, right? As he starts to, over time, become a little less interested in running a telecom company, and you can tell he just wants to bet big. He's all about big bets. And so he really concretely splits this into two. So you might hear SoftBank in two different contexts. One is SoftBank Group, which is this broader essentially an investment company at this point. And then SoftBank Corporation is a subsidiary within that runs the telecom. So if you are walking around Japan, you might literally see like a SoftBank store, and that's referring to you can go buy a mobile device and buy, a plan for mobile. But then SoftBank broadly refers to Masayoshi-san, this guy who is leading all these different investments, which not only includes the telecom, it includes all of ARM, it includes other big companies that they've invested into. and it includes the Vision Fund. Here's where it gets crazy. Okay, the Vision Fund in 2016, he decides I'm not betting big enough, even though he bets way, way, way too big all the time. He decides to raise a $100 billion fund. That sounds like these numbers get so big. The next biggest fund ever raised for venture capital was $9.5 billion. So it'd be 10 times that. The next biggest private equity fund ever raised was about $24 billion by BlackRock. And for context, in 2017, every U.S. venture capitalist, this is 2017, there's still tons of hype around tech, right?
I was going to say, venture capital's fucking huge in the U.S.
In 2017, yes. Across 8,000 companies in total, all U.S. venture capitalists invested about $84 billion in 2017. Masayoshi-san is like, I'm going to personally get $100 billion, and we personally are going to distribute that into tech companies. His quote is that it is conceived primarily to make investments around the thesis of singularity, a belief that artificial intelligence will surpass the intelligence of humankind and replace and redefine a significant number of jobs. So he, in 2016, is like, I think AI is going to advance. It's going to take over. It's going to become the big thing. And I want to raise $100 billion, which is like the size of a country, in order to invest into it massively. So where do you get $100 billion from?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the answer.
I accidentally looked at Doug's notes, so I was like, that tracks.
Yeah. So there's a story. He goes, he gets on a plane. He gets on a plane and he's going to meet with investors for this plan. And they had originally $30 billion as their goal that they were going to raise. Yeah. And on the flight over, he's reviewing the slides. And apparently he reaches over to the slide deck, deletes the 3 and replaces it with a 10. And he says, life is too short to do anything small. So just on the plane, he's like, $30 billion? No. $100 billion. So that's the kind of guy he is. We're just on a flight. He's like, no. Let's go way, 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 way bigger. Like so unnecessarily large for no reason. He goes to Saudi Arabia and he meets with MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi.
And he's like, there's a great YouTuber coming up right now. His name is Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to build a theme park for this guy.
You're gonna want the theme park.
Some quick numbers. Atria, can you throw out some numbers? So we're talking about $100 billion fund. It's easy to think, oh, that's a lot of money, but like, how do you ground that against a real business?
It's about AirPods.
AirPods.
$100 billion would put you at the size of Nintendo.
Oh my God.
Nintendo is a $100 billion company. So that is the 8th largest company in Japan is what that would be. So,
and it's just for venture capital.
Just for venture capital.
Yeah, I think McDonald's globally makes like $17 billion a year, something like that. I mean, these are massive, massive companies. So he goes, he meets with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and tells him, I'm going to give you a gift of $1 trillion. And the guy says, what? And he says, you just have to give me $100 billion and then I'll turn it into $1 trillion. And so he says that in 45 minutes, he convinces the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to give him $45 billion. So they successfully raise about $100 billion.
This is true, and he said he did this on a talk show.
What?
Yeah.
He said he walked in and he said, he started by getting his eyes wide with I'm going to give you $1 trillion.
MBS being $1 trillion. That's like, that'll cover 10% of the line.
Yeah. Finally, the line is unlocked.
We have a way to fund the line.
Half fund the line.
So you're starting to get a sense of this guy, Masayoshi, and how he's just like the biggest gambler of all time. And
Dude,
he just makes it unnecessarily huge for no reason.
He's the guy at the roulette table that bets on red, it hits red, goes double down.
Yeah.
Hits red, double down. Hits
Life's
red,
too short.
Walk away.
So he goes to Saudi Arabia in 45 minutes, convinces them to give him $45 billion. Again, as context, the biggest fund ever raised, which is like by BlackRock, was like $25 billion. So just from Saudi Arabia, as SoftBank agrees to put in $28 billion. Abu Dhabi gets them to agree to invest $15 billion. And the remaining $5 billion is from normal companies like Apple, who give $1 billion. I just want to, again, reiterate this. Normal tech world is like you go and you raise, a couple $100 million from different companies. He raises $100 billion almost entirely from 2 Middle Eastern countries and his own company. And that's where the fund comes from. This is Vision Fund 2017.
It's just such an incomprehensible amount of money. Like I'm doing well, I have everything.
He also raised a few billion from Aiden.
I have everything I need. And it's such an unfathomable amount of money.
Apple, the biggest company in the world, I believe at the time in 2017, but regardless, massive. They only agreed to put in $1 billion, and that was huge for them.
Yeah.
Only $1 billion from Apple.
Getting to
Saudi
say
Arabia
only
casually
$1 billion.
drops $45 billion. I mean, Saudi Arabia has like $1 trillion almost that they can throw around. But still, this is insane. And so they come back and they basically say, all right, we have $100 billion. Now we need to spend it. Okay. And for context, 4 of the biggest tech IPOs ever, Spotify, Lyft, Uber, and Slack, massive companies. In their entire kind of like funding, they raised $24 billion combined. So the idea that you need $100 billion, it's not just an insane amount of money. It's like, how do you even spend that? That's an average of over
that's where the story gets.
That's where, right, exactly. The number I saw from this site is because they said it was going to be a 5-year investment, they had to invest on average $55 million per day that they had to be. So they just go fucking crazy. So they basically send people out all over the world who are just throwing money at everybody. And there's articles about this in, for example, Bloomberg, where they're saying, look, up until this point, venture capital was like you go and you make these small little speculative investments. You say to a company, we're going to help you grow a little bit. And these guys come in and just say, look, smallest deal is $100 million. All right, we want billions, though. They are trying to go into a category, and instead of finding a young company, they find one that's currently the leader. And they're like, we're just going to drop so much money into your pocket that you don't have to be profitable for a long period of time. We just want you to grow an insane amount, dominate the entire market. We'll figure it out later. So this drives valuations way up. It makes it way harder for normal venture capital. SoftBank, according to a partner at a major Silicon Valley firm, is a big stack bully, which is a poker term referring to a player with a pile of chips so huge that competitors are afraid to get in the game.
It's so funny, the idea of being like a massive venture capital firm and having all this money available to you and be like, I'm getting stacked out.
Yeah. Because this dude walks in from Japan and is offering billions of dollars to everybody.
Get to what happened, because I think this is making it seem like this was the most genius
It's not.
play.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
we're
if the
saying
guy if Ludwig plays poker with us.
Yeah.
He shows up. He has infinite money. He doesn't
hate
care
it.
if he loses. It doesn't mean he just punts his money. And
Yeah.
Hold on. I wish that were the case.
The last
because
time we
got
played, it
the
was
last
not.
time he made out like a bandit, which
He actually-
feels even worse
that
because
was
he
bad.
doesn't need it.
He had a lot of employees that he basically robbed.
Yeah, me.
Okay, so
And
you're
Does
fine, but
Masayoshi
Miles.
Son's
Okay.
poker play work? No. No, it doesn't. So this
I
crazy...
mean, it has worked. You talk about the good time.
No, we'll talk about both. Yeah.
But this vision fund, this $100 billion vision fund.
So this Vision Fund, and they actually
Okay.
raised a second in 2019, Vision Fund 2. They raised another like $56 billion. That time, the Middle Eastern countries are like, no, we don't want to be a
We've
part of
given
this
you
because at this
enough.
point, it's not. So as of June 2025, this is from SoftBank's own reports, they have currently hold investments in over 400 companies. They have spent, since 2017, since its inception, about $164 billion. That is a ton of money. And they had some huge successes early on. Coupang, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, basically Korean Amazon delivery. They bought a 35% stake for $3 billion. They end up with $33 billion gained in 2021. So huge gain, $33 billion, crazy amount of money. DoorDash, they bought a whole bunch of stock, about $680 million, ended up profiting $11 billion during the IPO in 2020. They actually, with NVIDIA, they bought 5% of the company in 2018. And then in 2019, they sold it for $3 billion, or they made $3 billion. If they had held on to their 5% stake in NVIDIA, right now, it would be worth $230 billion.
Oh my God.
That would have single-handedly made
Yeah, it
them
would have
one
made
of the
it
most
yeah.
successful companies of all time. That bet that they made, they sold early, and it's referred to as the fish that got away. However, there were some extremely notable failures. So WeWork, we don't have time to get into the whole story of WeWork, but essentially was this giant scam by the CEO who was going around just dumping money everywhere. And when that guy got together with Masayoshi-san, who was like, you want to spend money? You want to grow by burning billions of dollars? It was like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
The two just start burning more and more and more money. They try to IPO, it fails. So instead of letting it fail, SoftBank puts in another $10 billion. And like, surely $10 billion will prevent it from failing. But eventually, if a company really fucking sucks at the fundamentals and just burns cash, that doesn't work. You can't just throw
eventually
money
they
at
had
the
to
problem.
pay, like Masayoshi-san had to pay the CEO $1 billion to leave.
Yeah.
Which is the most crazy fuck. The guy was so bad, but he had so much entrenched control that they had to give him $1 billion to leave.
Yeah, it's such a sick idea to turn. They basically turned leasing office space into a tech company, like pitched it as a tech company.
And it's just leasing.
And it's just leasing office space.
With a CEO who was kind of just scamming the investors in the company. Yeah, and then literally asked for $1 billion to leave. So SoftBank in total spent and lost $16 billion. And this is part of that vision fund. Chinese Uber, Didi, they invested $11 billion, which for a period was successful. And then China cracked down on tech companies and that became a failure. Katerra is a US construction tech company. They invested $2 billion. Whole company goes bankrupt. So the short version of this vision fund, it came in as like, this is the biggest fund of all time by far. And they're just throwing money around. First 2 years, they're just throwing the money everywhere, but they have some like major high profile losses. They have a couple big high profile wins, but for the most part in the last, let's say 7 years, it's been huge failures. Like this is considered like one of the biggest, highest profile failures ever. And they basically admitted like, we've really messed up here. We invested in some really stupid things at a scale that was just unbelievable. The fast few years finally starting to become profitable. So SoftBank, as of March of this year, posted their first profit in 4 years. Good for them.
The company?
Yeah, SoftBank, the company. So this year, finally, they're doing well. And actually, according to the report in this June, their overall vision fund is now worth $170 billion, which means over the last, 8 years now, they have actually profited in total $5 billion. So even though at varying points over the last 8 years, they made some of the dumbest investments ever and lost more money on these investments than any other company ever because Masayoshi-san just wants to fucking throw it all on red over and over and over. Technically now, largely thanks to AI stocks, they are in the green by $5 billion.
I think that's through Vision Fund 2, though. My understanding is that Vision Fund 1, they got the $100 billion, mostly from the Middle East, and they punted about 33 of it by the end of it. Like it's down to 70, which is why they didn't want to invest in Vision Fund 2.
Sometimes you get crazy and you punt 33B.
So now it's back, and this is according to their thing. So So in Vision Fund 1, they have actually
they profited.
Yeah. So and that's kind of the thing, right? Like over time, this thing is doing well enough, right? At this point, it is no longer this massive failure, but it took years and years of it being a massive failure.
It is crazy to look at like a $5.7 billion profit on the fund and be like, they did all right.
That is really good. I mean, what is the percentage return though on 100?
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. Contextually, with the amounts of money that are being thrown around, the amount of money raised, it doesn't feel that big. But it is success.
It is success, yeah. And all it took was destroying a lot of markets and creating some bubbles and disrupting everything and inflating valuations. Partially why I first started looking into him is because in the All In podcast, which is, let's say, a tech business podcast, earlier this year, I was listening to it, and they were like, Masayoshi-san, this year, they're posting incredible profits. Like SoftBank Group is doing super well this year.
Yeah.
I think he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT investor. He went through all those hard times in the 2017, 18, 19, and now he's proven he was right the whole time. And I'm like, no, he is fucking not, dude.
No, I don't think he was.
He just has these huge wins and these huge losses, and that's his whole thing. He is like this insane gambling dude. So what does this all lead up to? Well, there's two notable things that have